Hello and welcome to the Pretty Good Gaming Podcast. My name's Mike Williams. Today I'm joined by Mr. Gareth Evans.
Hello, I'm back.
And Mr. Jake Kulkowski.
Budget Gareth, hello.
Today we're going to be talking about the newly announced Middle-earth Shadow of War, which I'm sure we all agree has an awesome name. But first, Gareth, tell us what you've been playing this week.
Well, I've been playing a game that you've already covered on this channel. So I went on holiday, I got back, I started playing a game. It's like, yes, going to make a video, but then you've already covered it, you bastards. So, no, I was playing Ghost Recon Open Beta. I had a lot of fun playing it. And I had so many thoughts coming in that I thought, I'll just put it on the podcast now. I'll just tell everyone what I think.
Yeah.
So I'll start with the positive aspects of it. It's a nice game to look at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good looking.
And that's about it. No, I'm joking. No, the co-op side of things is good. If you've got a group of friends to play with, it's you can get involved in situations and you can go on adventures with people and you strategize between yourselves and have lots of fun with your friends, like everyone likes to do. That's a good aspect of this game. Another good thing I like about it is it's third person. But as soon as you hit the iron sights button, you go to first person. I don't know a lot of games that do that, and that for me was like so good.
Yeah,
it's like
a nice
so
touch.
Good feeling to it, because it gives you that first person feeling, like you like the old school COD is why I always use my reference points because that's kind of what I grew up playing. So it's like I love that aspect of it. I love that you can see your own character, but you can also you've got your iron sights, so it's that little bit more. Precise when you're aiming and things. 'Cause obviously, I'm playing on PC, so I just love that side of it. I don't see a lot of games playing that. Apparently, doing that, even Metal Gear Solid 5 did that. If you enabled it in the settings.
Oh right.
Yeah.
I didn't do that, and so I didn't know that.
Yeah. So
cool.
Apparently, that's the thing. I was only told by Liam, but so.
True. It's true.
I don't know many other games that do that, and for me, that is one of the biggest takeaways. I love that aspect of it.
Yeah.
And if more games do that, I will be interested in playing them. So, I don't know how you felt about that yourselves.
I mean, yeah. So we've all played it pretty much, haven't we? Jake, you played
right.
it as well. I mean, we've been through your kind of thoughts in the video from the other day. I thought it was very similar to The Division because I have played a lot of The Division, and it feels very much like they've not reskinned it, but they've just built up from what The Division was. Coming from someone who has played, like I said, an awful lot of The Division, it is very reminiscent of it. And I mean that in the presentation, the general kind of gunplay of it and stuff. I mean, obviously The Division is completely different in that it's more MMO-ish, so your enemies kind of take damage and take points off and stuff like that. But apart from the comparison to The Division, Jake, you referenced like Far Cry and Metal Gear. That's the heaviest kind of influences.
Yeah, Metal Gear Solid 5 for me, there was a lot there. The weather system reminded me of Metal Gear Solid 5, and like you guys just touched on then, I did enable the setting where you could aim down the sights for that first person, moments where it mattered. And so even more reasons for me to be reminded of it, especially that I used to recon the bases all the time. Obviously, I had like a cyborg eye patch dog to do it on Metal Gear Solid.
Always handy to have.
Yeah, I thought it was more. It was closest to stuff like Conflict Desert Storm for me, little squad shooters from, the Xbox One, PS2 era. Admittedly, I didn't play Future Soldier, which I think was that the last Ghost Recon before this one?
It was, and they were an interesting kind of spin on the series. I did quite like they were focusing on that new tech, and it was that near future conflict kind of thing before it became really popular, where every Call of Duty was set in the near future. They were doing it a while ago, and it was pretty interesting back when it came out. But for Ghost Recon, I think the biggest comparison I have to draw with it is to Armour. I feel like it's lightweight mainstream Armour 2, Armour 3. I think that's what they're going for. I think it feels like how can they make Armour digestible to pretty much everyone, and that's what they've done.
They're treading a fine line between an action game and a sim game, and I think it kind of shows in some ways. Like I was going to get into this anyway, so I might as well. It's like let's talk about the helicopters. Okay, the helicopters are so awful to fly. Yeah. It's like you pitch forward, and after 3 seconds of pitching forward, it will automatically correct you. It's like, don't wrap me in cotton wool. I know how to fly. You know what I mean? Give me the tools to be able to do it. Don't try and force me to correct my. I don't know what the hell they thought about with the controls on the helicopter.
Vehicle controls in general, I thought were pretty
in general. I'm specifically talking about the helicopter because it's kind of. it kind of reflects the whole game. That's like what the problems with it. It's like, okay, going back to the treading the fine line between simulation and a kind of arcade action game. It's like when you get missiled in a helicopter, you don't blow up. The helicopter comes down and you bounce off the floor. I mean, what the fuck is that all about?
Just like real helicopters.
Just like real helicopters. I mean, what the fuck? It's like I've got about 2 or 3 clips where I've taken out by a missile and I don't explode with the helicopter. Just the rotors explode and I hit the ground and bounce
maybe
and
they
roll
have
and
very bouncy surfaces in Bolivia or wherever it's at.
It's like it's too action. It's too like it's not enough of a sim for me. I think it's like it's just not believable enough.
I was quite skeptical going into it, but I think Jake, you were a little bit more enthusiastic than I was, and then so I gave it a go as well, just because I wanted to, I wanted to see what it was about, and it did win me over a little bit because I had no expectations. I had zero interest in it, pretty much, and then fired it up, played it for about 4 hours, and I liked it after 4 hours, and I kept playing it for probably another 4 hours, and I won me over a little bit. I got to be honest.
One thing was a takeaway from the video we made on Monday, which a lot of the comments seem to allude to, was the difficulty settings do really make a difference. I don't know if you guys played it on the Ghost difficulty, which is like the super realistic one. But I suppose, like what you guys are saying, it doesn't.
Sorry, that's the setting where the helicopters don't bounce. Is that what you're saying?
I think that is, yeah. You're not allowed in a helicopter. Where's the other one? I mean, vehicles, like you were saying. I remember it was a mission where I had to snake down this mountain road on a motorbike, but no, I just went off road, went all the way down a cliff, didn't even fall off my bike, didn't even graze a knee.
You did kind of bring that up in the video as well, though. Is they're trying to appeal to that kind of GTA, people just to mess around and have a bit of fun and stuff. So if they made it too realistic, if they went too much, that's what I meant with the armor thing. You can do anything in armor. It's a very open-ended game, and it gives you very similar situations as to what Ghost Recon does. But in Ghost Recon, it's so much easier to just like bulldoze through a base, go completely wild off-road with a motocross motorbike, flying helicopters. Even though the controls are bad, it's not as much of a learning curve and everything as armor.
I think it's a really disgusting and inhumane decision for the people at Ubisoft to say, do you know what would be really funny? Let's make a game that appeals to GTA fans and really serious army-going people. We'll put them on a huge open world together, and they're going to hate each other by the end of this. Because I wanted to play it seriously, and I kept getting run over by people that were like called stuff like
GTA leftovers. I think
GTA leftovers is what I stand by.
Jake making friends already.
Hey, so and the Sims comment got some heat as well. No, but it seems they've tried to give everything. Everybody everything, but ultimately, I was looking for a bit more of a tactical experience with other players, and what I found was a little bit more of a casual experience. And when you're playing with random people, you don't have the choice. Do you know what I mean? There's not a toggle, play with plebs or not. It's random, isn't it? That's just such is the way of the internet, I suppose.
I think to sum up the game, for me, it falls down in a lot of ways, and it's a critical failing. I think. The main problem is that it's repetitive, and I played most of my time single player, and it's this endless cycle of you arrive at an area, you mark your targets, you take out your targets, you loot whatever's around an area, you upgrade your person because of that with everything that you've gained. You travel to the next area and do exactly the same thing. It's like, how many of these areas are there on the map? You've seen the map, it's huge.
It is enormous,
There's only so many certain amount of times that you can do that. Arrive, mark, kill, loot, and upgrade and repeat. I was like an hour and a half in, I realised there's not much more to this game. This is it.
You put it like that, and it feels like almost all Ubisoft games are built around some kind of repetition. Like it's Far Cry, Assassin's Creed, everything that they put out is built around repetition. Even the Division, which like I've said, I'm a fan of. Very repetitive. And I don't know what it is in their mentality. I think they just want to give you lots of content, but they do it by replicating the same content in just slightly different ways every time. Slightly different outposts.
In its defence, it does offer you different ways to approach areas. Like I had a lot of fun jumping into a helicopter with my team and telling them to open fire. Well, I just flew around. Obviously, having taking the time to learn about how to control the fucking helicopter. And also, in talking about helicopters again, going back to this, it is one of the highlights of the game for me. When you pick up a helicopter with rockets, I got some footage of me taking out another helicopter with rockets. That was pretty sweet, and some ground attacks too. It was really satisfying when I pulled that off because how hard it was to control.
Yeah.
But going back to the leveling system, as part of the repetition, it's like, how realistic is it that these Santa Blanca people have left medals around the place, and you pick them up, you're getting credit for their, and you level up your character because you find a medal, and also the repetition of you tagging supplies. It's like, what the fuck is that? It's like you're accruing
tasks. That's exactly what I meant with the Ubisoft games. They give you these jobs, just little jobs to do, and then it just, that's how they build their games for some reason. A lot of the time playing this game, you will just be opening a container and throwing something in there and closing it again. It's like, I put a montage together of like 5 times in a row, and that was probably in like 20 minutes of playing. It's like, what more is there to this game? You robbing other people's medals and claiming credit for them and upgrading your own character, and then you're opening containers and throwing shit in there and then closing it. That's how you level your character. I mean, come on, it's an RPG. Let me earn my character's points by shooting stuff, by walking places, by traveling places, not by opening containers and throwing a fucking... It just seems cheap. The leveling thing is how they just gamify. I know it's just a game and it's just a video game, but it just seems ridiculous that a team of elite special forces can't do more than one synchronized shot. You've got to learn on the job in Bolivia or whatever it is. Is it Bolivia?
It's Bolivia.
Yeah, thank God for that. I've said it twice now. They're learning on the job for some reason how to synchronize. So you don't immediately know how to shoot 4 guys as a team in what. Surely that's like basic special forces.
It's with
stuff.
Every game though, isn't it? It's like you start off as the shittest version of the profession that you are, and then you work your way up. But a couple of like solid failings is like, I know it's a beta, and people might say they've got time to fix the bugs and this and that, but betas aren't what they used to be these days. Betas are just like play trials. They're not like looking for feedback from the player base at this point. It's gone beyond that now. Like, they're not going to be able to fix any of the bugs. But some of the bugs that I encountered, like the AI was one of the biggest ones, and there was a situation where early on in one of the missions you've got to activate a radio and then defend it. And so the AI who were coming in to try and knock out the radio that I'd initiated, they were just running out of cover towards the radio and shooting it. When I was on a bank behind them, they knew where the shots were coming from. People around them are falling, dying, yet they're still out of cover. No regard for their own well-being, and they just run towards.
Fanatical.
That's one of my main issues with the AI. The other thing was when I was driving up to a car of one of the enemies as they're marked on the map, and I told my squad to fire. They start shooting the car. The guy gets out on top of the car and he cowers. Okay, the car goes on fire and explodes. And this guy is still stood there, regardless of the flames. He's still alive, cowering on top of the car. I'm like, okay, how many bugs are there in this one scene? There's like, this guy won't die from flames. He's got no regard for his own life. It's like it's laughable, and then this game can't be fixed in a week. The other thing, and I know I'm going on a bit of a rant again, but the first mission where you got to kill them two necrophiles, whatever you call them. You've got to go underground in this like closed off room, and to get into the room for your shots to be able to count, you've got to press a button and open the door, and then you can get them. But there's this long corridor with big windows that you can kind of cower behind where they can't see you. And I tagged my sync shots on both of the targets, and without them seeing me. And my guys, my squad, were in the house above me. I'm in the cellar. And they didn't have line of sight on these two people, never mind being able to shoot through the glass. And they tagged up fine, and I was like, hang on a sec, this can't be like true. I initiated the sync shot, and they both shot and died. And this is you're like, how the fuck can this happen? My guys have not got line of sight on this pair, and I just what that expresses is that this one of the key mechanics of this game, or one of the key things that you can do, is this sync shot thing, and for them to shortcut that and allow your squad to kill people who they can't even see, they can't even reach, and they couldn't even kill them even if they could see them. Like it
takes any element of skill out of it, doesn't it? Because you haven't set that up. You've just pressed X on two bad guys, and then they've been killed automatically.
Regardless of where my with my team.
Yeah, you haven't had to line them up or whatever. So, anyway, moving on. Jake, you've been playing Resident Evil 7.
Yeah, been doing the rounds on Resident Evil. Started it again recently on Madhouse difficulty.
Nice.
I found it to be a great game. Everybody thinks it's a great game pretty much. I mean, I took a lot from it. I'm a fan of the series since the first game, and to be honest, this is the best example of a game coming out against a wave of cynicism and just say, are you laughing now? Resident Evil 7 blew all the cynics away, I think. A lot of people thought the first-person element might have been a bit of a...
Well, it's change, isn't it? It's change. Yeah. People go mental over change, don't they?
It managed to balance the old and the new, didn't it? Because it had the mansion, the animal keys, and and I know it sounds really cliche to say it. I've heard quite a few people saying this, to be honest. But I did, by halfway through, I forgot I was even in first person. I'm so engrossed in what's going on. I could care less the camera angle. I could care less. If the camera was behind me, it wouldn't make a difference at all to my experience playing the game. It's quite a short game, isn't it, in comparison to the others? I've seen some speed runs at some ungodly times, an hour and 20 minutes.
To be honest, though, if the quality is there, if it's a really enjoyable 10 hours or whatever it is, surely that is better than whatever. I'm sure Resident Evil 6 was longer, but it was an infinitely shitter game.
Exactly, and if you want to rush through it in 1 hour and 20 minutes, and that's your idea of fun, then more power to you. To be honest, a lot of the best games I played over the past year or so have been shorter games. I mean, a lot of people were saying Firewatch was a contender for Game of the Year. That's a short experience. And
super hot as well. Really short, and a lot of people were contending that was Game of the Year.
Exactly. So it's it's a quantity over quality thing. Wait, the opposite. It's quality over quantity, isn't it? With Resident Evil. The issues, if any, was the pacing. The pacing, when it was good, it was good. When it was bad, it was really it dragged. The last 40 minutes of my time with Resident Evil, I was kind of traipsing through, turning the corridor, and I knew that I turned around and there'd be somebody there. It was a bit cheap. I don't really want to go into the plot, spoilers, but there's at the ending I found to be quite enjoyable. It takes a lot of inspiration from all different types of horror. If you're a fan of horror, not games or just horror,
the genre in general,
there's a lot of nods, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original film's got a dinner scene. It's got one of them. There's some body horror, which is really popular in Japan, obviously where the game's from, like Junji Ito manga and stuff like that. So there's a lot of influences from a lot of different styles of horror, whether it's novels or things like that. So it's a great piece for the horror genre in total. The biggest issue I think we collectively all felt was the scripting. The scripted jump scares seem to be a problem.
Not just jump scares. It very mechanically wants you to do things exactly the way that you're supposed to. It wants you to be in the right place at the right time and throw things at you in a certain way.
Yeah, absolutely. I found if I was walking through a corridor and I was a little bit to the left and it was going to trigger a cinematic, the game would physically drag me to the right. Someone's picked me up and moved me along, which is a bit of a shame. It felt a little bit cheap because probably just because of my nervous, scaredy cat disposition, I felt the game was organically scary.
Yeah, it was.
Had the atmosphere, it had tension. There's a part in the basement where I was like, I had to pause it. You know what I mean? It's not. I'm not saying.
Change your pants.
I'm not saying everybody's going to do that. I don't want people to think that if I say that, don't listen to me. But then I felt, it was cheapened by the fact that, you'd be one side of the house and you'd encounter one of the Baker family, and you know that they're there because you've just seen them. You've just snuck past them. Then you enter a door, and you can run faster than that decrepit old woman, Marguerite. She's just like an old woman with a lantern. And then, no, she's there. She throws, she physically.
I had that exact experience.
Yeah, it's one of them. So it did a lot right, but, maybe more, Alien Isolation. That grew a big following because it's got a lot of organic, random, scripted jump scares. And Resident Evil, I knew it was necessary to perhaps push the story on. And I don't hold it against it too much, but I think that was one of the very few things that stopped that being probably a masterpiece, to be honest.
Yeah. I felt frustrated a lot of the time when I was playing it. I felt like like you mentioned, they're trying to get away from a character, and he's going to be there when you're running low on health. You need to get this little bit for the key to open the door or something. You're like, this little twat's going to be around this corner. It's like give me at least some respite to get on with some shit. To unlock the door, I need to get through. But ultimately, I know I was frustrated, and I was frustrated with the big boss fight with Jack with the chainsaw. At that point, I don't know. Like you said earlier, Mike, you need to play in a certain way. You have to fight that boss in a certain way.
There's the right way to do it.
I'd lost 10 times before I realised, oh shit, I need to be doing the thrusts with my chainsaw, and then I did it. It's like, how can it be so limiting that you have to do it in such a way that you can't possibly do it in another way? It's like, let me use my brain. Don't force me down this path.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly that, isn't it? And, with the risk of sounding morbid, if you were in a room with somebody, like the first Jack fight, you can kill him however you want. You can,
which is brilliant. That is probably the best boss fight in it, I think.
And I think that was a little bit cheeky of them, because they made that purposely open-ended. You can kill him however you want.
Yeah.
Then the rest of the game, you don't have such option. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it changes the game. Yeah.
Which is very, and isn't that funny how the review copies that they gave out, or the little demos, ended after that a little bit. So it got people talking, it got people, discussing the opening boss, and then you get it funnels you into this scripted, and the Jack boss fight was the same with me. I put enough lead into him, you know what I mean? He would have died 100 times over if it was any other game, but no, I had to pick up the chains, what I mean? And if you are listening and wondering how much of this game have we just spoilt for you, not much. About the first 2 hours, or if you're speedrunning it, the first 18 minutes. So don't worry too much. Yeah. It's not like it's not a major thing, that.
Well, I have been playing Final Fantasy 15, which is far from a speedrunnable game. That is a long game, but in a good way. I'm almost near the end now. I feel like I'm probably closing in on the end. And I started playing it late. I only started it a couple of weeks ago, and it is an absolutely beautiful game. It's just the main strength of it is the open world. It just gives you so many options to do things the way you want to do them at your own pace. And following the story is that's where the game kind of falls down a little bit for me. Actually, the main story, which is weird to say about a Final Fantasy game, that's where it's kind of feels a little bit weaker, and it's just because of the way the main story unfolds. I don't know, Jake, have you played some of Final Fantasy?
That's right, yeah, I've been playing it. I'm 100% agreeing with you here.
Yeah. I just feel like the main story just kind of creeps up on you over time. It feels like for the first few chapters, you feel like everything's happening over there somewhere. It's just happening in the distance, and you don't have to worry about it. And it's just slowly, is unravelled, in a very slow way, and it doesn't pick up till very late on.
Well, among the restaurant, car, holiday packages, and every other little bit of tat they were pushing when the game came out, they also released a film, Kingsglaive, I think
that's right, yeah.
And I think they released a 4-part anime series. Now, what I did not know, and what a lot of people didn't know, which is why it's got a lot of bad press for the story, is that that's almost necessary for you to completely understand. This is almost a companion piece to those bits of media.
It certainly feels like it expects you to know a lot of stuff already, and it attaches a lot of weight to things that are happening, and you're like, oh, is that important? What is that?
Yeah.
Do I need to care about that? And that's how I feel about a lot of it. But gameplay-wise, it is very enjoyable. I mean, just the exploring and stuff. I think, there is a point in the game where the open world kind of closes up on you, and you're pushed down this one thread, and then you're following a kind of linear path. But that's fine. I mean, I've had enough time with the open world to appreciate what it is, and it doesn't. It is an open world game, but that's not all it is. It is still a Final Fantasy game, and it's that's what its main kind of core is. All its sensibilities are all it's set in this kind of weird modernized Americana kind of setting, but. It's still Final Fantasy. It's still all the sensibilities of the story and everything are still. Oh yeah, that's very classic Final Fantasy.
Yeah, open world is classic Final Fantasy. This is an important thing to note. It's not just jumping on the trend of an open world for the sake of it, which is what nearly every big game's doing at the moment. That's always been part of the core. The world map has been as much as Final Fantasy staple as characters with stupid anime hair, isn't it?
But that's I think the fact that they've given you a car and stuff and the way that they present the world to you. Like there's a chapter called The Open World, so they want it very, they want you to understand that you can cut loose and go off and do whatever you want.
Inspiring,
yeah. But I think that my biggest complaint about it is just the fact that it kind of plays itself in a lot of ways. The combat is spectacular to look at, right? Oh, yeah. So the melee combat and everything it's chaotic. A lot of the time you don't really know what's going on because you're just holding down the attack button and it's just unfolding in front of you. But that's kind of what I mean. I feel like other than topping up potions and dishing out the party kind of moves, the set piece kind of moves that you can, if you build up the bar high enough, you can set off like this team move, which is pretty cool. But other than that, you're just holding down attack or dodge. Mm-hmm. And it feels like this thing is just happening. This massive battle is just happening, and it's just you watch it, and it's pretty cool. And that's true for a lot of the game. The driving is completely automated.
Yeah, I mean, I probably want to get a check on how many times. Like, if anyone in the comments wants to make a tally of the amount of times I've overused the word organic, but it's fluid, it's organic.
It's 19.
You've got the, you've got that, haven't you? You've got the fighting style. It unfolds. It's quite Kingdom Hearts-ish.
The attitude you need to have when you're playing Final Fantasy 15 is to put your feet up and not expect to be don't be too intense when you're playing it. It wants you to just chill out, I think. And that's the the whole theme of a road trip is that kind of feeling where you're just on a journey and you can't hurry it up because you need to get to your destination. It's going to take you ages to get there.
You let it flow.
Yeah, let it unfold for you.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing for me about the game, the thing I will remember it for, is just how beautiful it is, because it is insanely good looking. Gotcha. Like the landscapes, the hair on those guys is phenomenal. They've got these amazingly detailed hair textures that just look amazing.
Good enough to even make me jealous.
These four incredible hairdos in a car, just flapping away in the wind.
Bad haircut, they've got the whole. Topless, but they've still got a jacket on, haven't
they? Still manly. Oh yeah, topless but manly.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's beautiful. The game is beautiful.
It is, yeah. And there's some areas in there, a lot of areas I would say actually, that are just amazing to look at. And it is one of those games that have made me stop a few times to be like, wow, this is a beautiful beautiful game. It is a great achievement. I've got to hand that to them.
Does it feel like a long game? Is it like laborious?
No, only because there's a frustrating amount of time. When I was saying that you need to put your feet up and relax and play the game that way, because there's a lot of cutscenes, there's a lot of gameplay where you're not doing anything. You're pushing forward on the stick, you're holding one button down for an extended period. Even boss fights, right? Big, huge, spectacular looking boss fights where you're just, it's like, what do you call it? When you're just tapping the right button at the right time.
Quick time
event. Cross, thanks, Jake. Cheers, mate. You're just tapping the button away. These quick time events. Then you're holding down a button, and then for a few minutes on end, you're just not. You're not playing a game.
Yeah. So really, it's tricking you into thinking what you're doing matters. Yeah. But it doesn't. It's kind of suffers from Metal Gear Solid 4 had a lot of that. Yeah. It's an experience basically.
Exactly.
And very 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 small gameplay elements, like you're controlling that you're walking, but then there's all these things in the background happening around you, so you've got to really let yourself get swept away by what's happening. And if you want it in just I don't think you could just hop on it for 10 minutes.
No, definitely not.
You might find yourself spending 45 minutes of watching a cutscene or just walking. So
even you can tell by the save system that they've got in place, because it'll save checkpoints which don't actually save your progress. So if you were to switch off the game after a save checkpoint, you might have missed 40 minutes of gameplay that you've got to redo. Because I know that is the kind of game that it is. That it expects you to be sitting there for hours playing it at a time, and that is the only way to play it.
Needy.
Yeah, and that's the best way to play it, really. I've got to say. But so moving on to the main topic for today's podcast, I guess, is the newly announced Middle-earth Shadow of War. The sequel to 2014's excellent Shadow of Mordor. It's going to be released on August the 22nd in America and August the 25th in Europe, and it's out on PS4, Xbox One and PC. So first of all, Shadow of War. Can we talk about that title before we talk about the game?
No. You can talk about that title. What you like, Mike. Go ahead.
Well, it was
Tell us what you think.
Jake who said it in the office. It's an app store name. It's the kind of game that you put on and copy and paste, like cookie cutter money-making MMO RTS kind of thing that you get on a mobile device where you build a base and attack another player's base.
Sequel to Game of War.
Game of War. There's so many games called Shadow of something. Something of War.
I mean, the original was Shadow of Mordor. So is it going to detract from your enjoyment of the game just because it's called something different?
I don't like the fact that it makes me roll my eyes. Anything that makes me go,
But if it appeals to the the type of people who play a lot of these named games,
I guess
then it's good for them. So why should you be bothered, Mike?
Well, Piers Morgan. It's. I guess they can. It's justified because it's Shadow, isn't it? They want to make this into a franchise. Shadow of whatever. Fine, I get it, but it's a dumb name. You can't escape that.
It doesn't even allude to Tolkien.
It doesn't. No, it doesn't.
I think it's a dumb name, but I'm not up in arms about it like you.
What's interesting about this is it was leaked via Target, like a store listing first, and then so that was leaked.
Like the best games are these days.
And then very quickly, it was announced with a full trailer and everything. So I think, based on the trailer, it looks very generic, high fantasy, Tolkien, Lord of the Rings stuff. But I flip and love that kind of stuff, and it is enough to get me excited. And the fact that Shadow of Mordor was such a surprise, great game to me. I didn't know it was going to be. I didn't expect it to be anywhere near this.
What was good about Shadow of Mordor, Mike?
It was believe it or not, Gareth, it was an open world. But stay with me here. It was an open world third person action adventure with RPG elements.
Really?
Would you believe? Yeah.
Wow,
so it's
that's
a bold
new.
experiment, but it's paid off. Because the main thing about it was the Nemesis system, which is what everybody talks about. Yeah. And that probably was the biggest selling point, just the fact that you save like just an orc, right? Any just generic orc killed you, he would remember that he killed you, and he would like get a promotion in the orc army, right? So next time you fight him, he's like a sergeant or whatever, and he's got some bodyguards with him, and he calls you out when you go up to him. He calls you out and he says, "I killed you, you dickhead! How are you still alive?" That's the other thing. It referenced the fact that you respawn in a video game. They built that into the lore, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that was my question. Is how does this wash?
So he's can't believe that you're alive. So he's like, well, I'm going to kill you again, and then maybe he has a fight with him. Maybe he does kill you again. Yeah. He gets another promotion. He's got more armor. He's got a better weapon. He's got more mates around him. Right. So you get like, and
so he gets you couldn't beat him the first time, and like the fifth time when he's got like most armor ever. How are you expected to beat him then?
How
is that a good thing?
When you die to these guys,
shouldn't he be getting easier to beat?
well, no, I think it's cool because they're getting the promotion and they're getting the respect. Like, oh my God, you killed that ranger. He's been slaughtering us. Have a promotion. I think I love that kind of.
So he's not been resource gathering and opening lids and throwing things in. He's been actually working for his promotions.
He's doing his job.
I like that idea.
Well, yeah, and another thing is you learn their weaknesses. So some of them might be scared of fire or poison or whatever. Now, the most interesting thing about the Nemesis system is you can play a little spin-off of Football Manager with this, because later on in the game you can take over the orcs by touching them, and then you control them. They become your servants or
minions.
Yeah, and then what you can do then is, let's say that there's two orcs going for a promotion. You can just go in and kill your orc's opposition, and so that means that you can basically, quite cloak and dagger politically. Yeah, you can make them rise up the ranks. So then, eventually, if you take over 4 orcs, you could rise them to the top, and that'll basically cripple the army there. So your orcs can be
basically
right.
It is
right.
Really
that
cool.
Does sound interesting. That's not like something that's been seen before.
The way that they implemented it was brilliant because to begin with, it is just that basic system where they'll remember who you are. They'll get promotions or whatever, and then about halfway through the game. Then they introduce that element where you can do that. You can start influencing them and you can take over. Well, it's just this one mechanic where you take over them, really, isn't it? But then what comes out of that is so interesting. And that's why it was cool. And
so what is the skill that makes you take over these orcs? Like, is it a mind trick, Jedi mind trick or something?
I think it's because you're this Gondor captain called Talion.
Yeah.
And somehow you die, and Celebrimbor, who, for non-Lord of the Rings fans, is the guy that made the Rings of Power.
Yeah.
He's a ghost, right? And he sort of possesses you. So you're like a man, but you're also the ghost of this guy.
You're playing two characters,
and then so you've got like the Talion skill tree, your human powers, if I remember rightly, and then you've got your spiritual sort of your ghosty power thing.
Oh, I see.
And I think using that's how you influence them later on in the game. And you can use it to make your sort of orc ultimate team sort of thing. And then another thing you can do with the Nemesis system is if you've got your, let's say we're friends on PlayStation and an orc kills you. he'll appear in my game and it'll say this orc killed Gaz. If you kill him, you'll get more experience or whatever it is. I can't remember if I think it's a rune actually. I can't remember what the level up system. I played it when it came out.
Yeah, me too.
And so there's the sort of vendetta kill. I think that's what they called a vengeance kill.
Yeah, it was. And that was kind of a very dynamic event that just appeared on your map every now and then. But the whole game, the whole system was very dynamic. Like they just had this world, right, which was basically an arena for this system. They just had this Mordor, right? You can explore Mordor. There's camps and stuff everywhere. Everything, the orcs within those camps and all, the orcs that are roaming around the map and everything. That was all dictated by the Nemesis system, other than a few like of the actual main story bosses or whatever. Mm-hmm. Every enemy in it was completely dynamic, which is brilliant, which is what I really liked about it, and what most people really liked about it. That's what they were surprised about it, I think. But it was a very satisfying action game, good combat system, kind of like the Batman Arkham games, I guess.
Yeah, it has a lot of scaling of walls, and you can do the
very
dive
Assassin's
kills.
Creed.
Yeah, it's got a lot of that parkour element.
But it was cool.
Yeah, the hierarchy of the orcs was the main selling point.
So we've got to draw a point here that all these generic open world games that don't push anything new, they don't bring anything new to the table. Like we discussed Ghost Recon earlier, which we didn't really touch on how generic it is, but that is one example of how generic it can be. It doesn't bring anything new. Whereas what we're describing here is like a new system of NPC characters, how they work, and all that AI and stuff. It's just like it's new, it's groundbreaking, it's awesome. Like why can't more games be like this? It's like they've got to be commended for that.
There's a great deal of imagination that's gone into it, and the fact that this sequel that's coming out, they've got the system in place, and it obviously was kind of inevitable they'd just make a sequel to it. And you've got to wonder how can they build on what they've already got. What they're talking about is you've got greater influence over the environment itself and stuff, so you can actually influence the way the world looks and things rather than
just water the plants and grow some trees.
Don't know, probably not.
Grow your own crops. Is it like
I'm assuming it's like if there's someone who's plaguing some part of the world, you kill that guy and then you liberate that. It's got to be something like that, right? Okay. You've got to greenify, Mordor, which is interesting. It's still set in Mordor.
Yeah.
I thought maybe next time, it's kind of inevitable. Okay, they've done Mordor. Maybe they'll go beyond the mountain range of Mordor and go into Gondor or something. Do something different. But no, they've gone to Mordor again, which is pretty interesting. But it's going to be a bigger world and, like I said, influencing different things other than just the enemies.
Looks like they've really took the weak spots of Shadow of Mordor, which a lot of Lord of the Rings fans were quite disappointed to see, that there wasn't that much Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
There wasn't the iconic things. I mean, you had Gollum, but in this one you've got the Black Riders, you've got a Balrog, Sauron's in it. Now, I believe the first game was set in this, it's either 60 or 600 years. No, it's 60. It's the 60 years between The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
And this is and in this game set right on the brink of Sauron's rise to power. So Sauron's in the game, the Balrog, you've got the Nazgul, you've got all the big cool baddies from the books and from the films in the game with this already interesting system. So it looks like it could be an easy win for these guys.
To sound
they've basically got to not mess it up is all they've got to do, I think,
exactly.
And they've got an 8 out of 10 probably. If it's similar to the original one, which I hope hopefully it will be.
I'm pretty sure it'll have a lot more publicity and a lot more attention this time around.
Yeah. But given the way sequels and stuff have been selling recently, it's quite interesting because. A lot of sequels have been disappointing their kind of sales forecasts and stuff. So I don't know how well this is really going to do unless it does really ramp up this Nemesis system. Like if they saying you can influence the environment, okay, that's one thing. But if you can really do some cool stuff and really change the game world, it'll make a big difference.
Well, I think you got to consider the fact that the ones with the sequels are doing bad are the games that were hyped up to begin with. Now,
I'm disappointed.
Exactly. Shadow of Mordor wasn't one of those. And you think about Witcher as an example of how it can gain momentum as you go along through a series. It's from word of mouth. It's from people playing the game, telling their friends that it's awesome, and then everyone getting excited without all the publicity for the next installment, and that's hopefully what will happen here, guys.
Also, the fact that Shadow of Mordor came out in 2014, we're now in 2017. This is coming out, I think, is within the next 6 months. Yeah, so it's not like an annual iteration.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like another Assassin's Creed game, another Watch Dogs or whatever.
It'll be fresh enough.
It'll be fresh enough, exactly. We haven't had this game in 3 years, so.
Yeah. To even pitch successfully and get funding for a sequel of a game, if it wasn't a great success, you probably have to have quite a strong idea of where it's going. I mean, Call of Duty could just walk into, the Call of Duty development team could just walk into Activision and say, right, we need this budget to make this game. We'll make you this much money, and I can imagine that would be a very easy pitch. But for something like Shadow Mordor, like you said, not necessarily the most successful or well heard of game, for them to get the funding to make the sequel, I can imagine they must have at least have some idea of where they're going. And it seems that there's probably been a little bit more soul put into this one than just, and we're going to make you this open world Lord of the Rings generic blur.
Yeah. Okay, so that's it for this week's podcast. If you do want to listen to more, well, we've got some good news for you. We've got a little announcement to make. We are now on Patreon. If you want to support us on Patreon for just $1 a month, you'll get an extra little bit of podcast, which is great, isn't it?
Oh, that sounds like an unreasonably awesome value proposition. If you think about it, if we do a podcast every week, I'm selling this. I'm doing all right. For $1, you can get yourselves.
Hang on, just $1.
I know, and if you divide it by 4, and that's on average how many you're going to get per month. It's like 25 cents for an extra podcast. It's
the pretty good season pass.
Value. It's the best DLC you'll ever get.
Pre-order bonus.
So there you go. If you support us on Patreon, you get an extra little bit of podcast every week. So it's only $1 a month. It's basically just a way for you guys to support us if you want to. Purely optional, of course.
Sorry, can I jump in here? And the other thing we're going to do, there's going to be a simple $1 tier, and there's the $5 premium tier, which
so I think you mean the Super Bonerific Deluxe Edition.
Bonerific Deluxe Edition tier, which means you can suggest to us titles to our videos, what you want us to cover in the videos, and also ask us questions for the podcasts, and that's just as a thank you for being a Super Bonerific Deluxe Edition Pass
subscriber.
Member. That's it.
Okay, so thanks a lot for listening, everyone. I've been Mike Williams.
Jake Kulkowski.
Sorry, I'm getting.
Did I call you Kulkowski at the beginning?
That's actually how you say my name. Yeah.
Did I say Kulkowski at the beginning as well?
I don't care at this point.
No, you're out of line. You're out of line, Kulkowski.
Jake Kulkowski here.
He's been simmering on that the whole podcast.
Sorry, Jake. You've been looking like you're going to knock me out for about 40 minutes, so now I know why. I'm a bit relieved, to be honest.
And I've been Gareth Evans. Until next time, bye for now.
Bye for now.